Whether you're using a monitor for gaming, video editing, or photography, you want a monitor that's going to be true to life with colors and a low response rate, along with a bunch of other features and benefits that you might want. And in this video, we're going to be doing a complete review of the Titan Army C32C1S gaming monitor. We're going to start off with an unboxing, then putting the monitor together, then going over a bunch of different examples to show you some product usage, and then my overall opinion on the monitor. Without wasting any more time, let's get started. Again, here we have the Titan Army C32C1S gaming monitor. It's a 1440p QHD monitor. On the front, we can see it just says Titan Army. I actually kind of like that name. Along over here, some of the specs of the monitor and then some labels. Along this side, we kind of get a preview of the monitor itself and then another label, some more labels along here. Along the top, we have some more labels and nothing much along the bottom. So let's open it up real quick. All right, and then real quick, here we have more than likely the user's guide, the manual, user's manual for the monitor. And we're going to go over just about everything in this review, how to put it together and all that good stuff. Good information, but we're going to go over it here. A DisplayPort cable. From end to end is 5 feet. This is DisplayPort 1.4. And a power cable, which is also 5 feet long. Need help? We are here. Just contact information. 4 screws and then 4 mount screws. The base, which feels aluminum. And the stand stem, which also feels aluminum, nice and cold to the touch. Seeing the monitor for the first time, this is a curved 32-inch monitor with a 1 millisecond response time, gray to gray. You can see here how it curves, and Titan Army right along the bottom. And then over here what the buttons are going to be: M, down, up, E, and power. Let's go ahead and assemble it real quick. We're going to start by putting the base down. Then we're going to put the stand. So we're going to push this right through here. And now we'll grab one of these screws and we'll flip this over, holding it all together, and we'll drop the screw right into the center. And then we'll screw it in. Now we'll grab the monitor and we'll turn it around. Then after we turn the monitor around, in the rear, we're going to have this little oval here. We're going to push this up here, and then with our hand as well, we're going to pull this out. Okay, so we slide it out towards the bottom. And then this is where we're going to slide the base into. Now we're going to slide this right in through this hole. Now we're going to make sure that this screw hole lines up with this screw hole here, and then we're going to drop one of these screws right in here, and then we'll screw it in. And now that we've placed the screw here, we're going to place another screw right over here. And now we're going to grab the monitor. We're going to tilt it back and over, and then we'll slide this right in here and then lock it in place. Okay, that actually locked in incredibly easily. And along the bottom here, I'll take this off, and it looks like it exposes where you would connect the HDMI, DP, power, and audio. Here is where you connect audio out. It has 2 display ports, 1.4, and 2 HDMI ports, 2.1. Again, HDMI 2.1, so that's nice. And then over here, we have the power plug. And again, while we're down here, we have the 5 buttons. The first one is menu. The second one is down. Third one is up. The fourth one is the exit key. And the fifth one is the power button. The stand is not adjustable. You can't raise it or lower it, although You can tilt back and forward. Actually, you can go pretty far back, but you can't turn it and you can't raise or lower it. The reason I discovered all this, aside from reviewing it, is now I have to connect all the cables. The only way to do that easily is to flip the monitor upside down to access that back panel. Or maybe flip it on its back and access the panel there. It's a little clunky, but that's okay. Thankfully, everything is pretty close to the base right out here, so it's pretty easy to plug everything in. It's not incredibly deep. A little bit later on in this video, we're going to be testing on the HDMI 2.1. It doesn't bring a cable, but I have quite a few 2.1 cables. For now, we're going to be testing with the DP 1.4 cable that it provides. It's a little difficult to tell, but there is a slit right down here that can actually pass as a cable management little hole. So that is kind of nice at the base of the base right down here where this piece and this piece fold and meet. So that is kind of nice for those of you that are cable clutter conscious. I'm gonna turn her on real quick and then we're going to go into the OSD. All right, so got it on. Titan Army popped up. Let me bring you closer. Here we have game settings, picture settings, color settings, picture in picture, picture by picture, OSD settings, and other settings. So we'll go over here and standard mode, RTS, RPG mode, FPS arena mode, MOBA arena mode, adaptive sync, shadow balance, response time, refresh rate, game crosshair, game time, dynamic brightness, HDR, and ambient lighting. So they have a ton of stuff here. Adaptive sync is off, so let's go ahead, turn it on. And shadow balance. Cool. Response time. So fast, ultra fast, off, and normal. Let's select ultra fast. Refresh rate, that's so that we can have the refresh rate on the screen. Game crosshair is off. Let's turn it on real quick. Game time, dynamic brightness is off. Elaborate, beautiful, okay. HDR is off. Let's turn it on standard. Ambient lighting is off. So let's go ahead, turn it on. Ah, nice. And I'll show you that a little bit later on. So kind of cool. Picture. So here we can change the brightness, contrast, DCR, context module, contextual module, low blue light. Okay, we're already on 0. Sharpness should be, yep. And gamma. I don't want to turn into the Hulk. So I'll leave that alone for now. Color settings, warm, natural, cool, and user. Let's see if there's anything else in there. Hue and saturation. Picture in picture, we'll need 2 separate computers for that, or picture by picture. OSD settings, language, English, OSD timeout. A lot of options here. It's nice. Other settings, input, volume, mute, auto power, eye shield, remind, reset, and information. Here it shows our DPI, our resolution, our HDR version. We're under SDR right now, and our serial number. Kind of weird that the serial number is off right now. First off, let me change the refresh rate. I think it's showing what it's at now. So let's enable HDR and then advanced display. And yeah, we're at 60. So click here, then we'll go up to 240 Hertz, keep changes. Now let's see what the monitor shows. Yep, the monitor shows at 240 Hertz. And then here is the crosshair. Let's see if we go back to information. And now we've enabled HDR and we're still under standard mode, and we have 240 Hertz at 2560 by 1440, and game mode is off. So that's kind of nice. All right, so the program I'm using, Filmora, only has 60 Hertz refresh rate, but you can see right up here, 240 Hertz. So that's beautiful. Hopefully I'm not screaming too loud at least. So we'll come under graphics. Then we're using FSR3 with frame generation. And I'm just seeing if there's anything here to set refresh rate. So nothing here. And all right, so 2560 by 1440. We are HDR. It has, but actually it went brighter, so that's nice. So far the picture looks great. The monitor looks very smooth in its coloring. Now that I've let the game handle the screen over here, it feels beautiful, feels nice. It looks, the color and everything on this monitor looks great. And we're at 160, but that's not due to the monitor, that's just due to the graphics card. All right, so that's enough there. We'll quit here and let's see what Black Myth Wukong shows. I'm not used to using that crosshair, so that is kind of new to me. All right, and let's check the settings real quick. We don't have to use, actually, let's see what happens with that. Wow, it looks really sharp. A little weird when you get closer up, but it does look very sharp. So I'm using mouse and keyboard, not a gamepad. The game looks beautiful. The game play, of course, is my fault. Wow. All right, that looks really nice. So let's jump out of here real quick. Let's go into Jedi Outlaws. Now I did forget to check if my FreeSync is enabled. So one sec. Since this monitor does have variable refresh rate, and the HDR on here is HDR 400, and settings up here, display, adaptive sync, right over here. Provide smooth, responsive gameplay by updating the display as new frames become available. Requires an AMD FreeSync compatible display, which this is, so nice. We'll close out of here, and let's go ahead back into Outlaws. All right, so we'll go into settings, video, 240 hertz, that's beautiful. And we'll come down over here. Film grain, let's turn that off. All right, so we'll resume the game. Look at that.
We need to stay out of sight.
Like, the game had nice graphics and everything, but it feels so much more full here.
It's not yet too comfortable.
Nicest place we've ever robbed, huh?
Like, that was barely a slap. That's kind of funny. It feels beautiful with this display. And let me get a nice picture so we can zoom in a little bit. 1 second. So normally I'm not a car guy, but the image quality on here is beautiful. This, if I didn't mention it before, is an HDR 400 display. It has a color gamut of 82% NTSC, 80% Adobe RGB, 85% DCI-P3, and 99% sRGB. Mind you, this is an 8K photo, so we don't truly know how good the source was, but this looks beautiful. So bringing you in a little bit closer so that you could see the quality of this. I am about 1/4 of an inch away from the monitor, and you could see just how beautiful this looks. Now I'm zooming out. Mind you, when I say zooming, I'm moving the camera in and out. I'm not actually using zoom. So then coming in here, look how beautiful that looks. The pixel quality on the screen is great. As I mentioned, while gaming with this, it feels so full. I've never gamed on a 240 hertz that looked as good as this. I'm incredibly impressed by it. The gameplay quality was very nice. Again, 240 hertz. It was beautiful. The HDR, and personally, I've never gamed with HDR on before, so this looks beautiful. The backlight, let me show you that real quick. The backlighting is just this. Now, I don't know if it changes color. We'll find out soon enough. My horrible attempt at some cable management there, but that's how it shows. And again, this is the base. I really don't like that base. I feel like they could have done much better, but regardless, this is that backlighting, and that is kind of cool. So we're almost totally on the side, and we can see just how nice that looks. Let's come around the other side. Kind of looks like a poster there. Picture looks incredibly sharp. The viewing angle is 178 degrees. The contrast ratio is 3000 to 1 at 16.7 million colors. Now it also has picture by picture mode, which is incredibly odd. I've never used it before, but I feel like some tortured soul might. I'm using my Geekom over here and then my home built one right over here. So I can do different things on two different computers. And it hurts my head because it's just a lot going on. So my Geekom, if you saw my review, I'll link it up above, but I have it connected to the monitor, and then I have my own PC connected to the monitor, the Geekom on HDMI 2.1, and I actually changed the way it was within the OSD. So whereas before the custom built one was on the left, I moved it to the right. So I just opened up over here and I came down here, and then I told it select this one, and then I came down to sub signal source, sub signal DP coming from that side, so sub signal being on the right, not the left. But then if I switch sub signal to the HDMI 2, which is the Geekom, that should bring it over to the right. Now it's bringing them both to the right. So let me switch that back. So I'm getting a picture by picture by picture, and then I'll choose DP1. Okay, so then I moved it over. So now the Geekom is on the right and the custom built one is on the left. So then on top of that, if you don't like picture by picture, we can come over here. This is the window swap part, but we can come over here by picture by picture. And now let's do picture in picture. Okay, now my custom built is the main display, and my Geekom is this display up over here. So it's cool that I could do that, but one thing that I really want to do, which by the way, I just tested HDMI 2.1 on the Geekom, I want to test it on my workstation, but I'm also going to move it to an arm. That way I can actually move the monitor around a lot more. So let's bring it over to my workstation. My Viatech GN35DR has been awesome. I've been using it for quite a few years now, but it does 2560 by 1080. It's a wide screen display. It works great, but it makes screen recording sometimes difficult because I have to drop down to 1080p. And because the stand isn't adjustable and it's not a regular VESA mount, I haven't been able to find the adapter. So now with this new monitor, it should work with VESA correctly. So let's switch it over to VESA. We're going to need to do a few things to move this over to the VESA mount. So first off, we're going to have to take this out, and then we're going to have to remove these 4 screws and then use these mounting screws. Now that we've removed the screws, I highly recommend put these in a baggie somewhere and save it. You never know when you need to put the stand back on. And now we'll just go ahead and screw these in place. I'm just going to tighten them a little extra with some tools. I ended up going with a Mount Pro arm to put this on an arm. We're gonna go ahead and install it real quick. This isn't part of the monitor, but the fact that you can put a VESA mount here, or an arm I should say, is great. I couldn't do that on my last monitor or my current monitor. Now I have all of them in. Now I'm just going to tighten them all up. All right, now to take it to the other desk. I'm trying to see if I can fit both monitors on here, at least on my desk. right, so it feels very unstable only because I haven't set one up like this before, but it might be perfectly stable and I just don't know it yet. So I gotta tighten the arm. And now with this, I should be able to turn it that way. Now, I'm not so much a fan of turning it sideways, but you can. And this mount was only about 35 bucks. So far, it seems nice. The Titan Army C32C1S monitor has been amazing to review. I'm in love with this monitor, but it does have a few issues. It has a 31.5-inch display and it's not widescreen, which I think is great because widescreen makes it a little bit difficult for screen capturing. You have to drop down to the lowest standard resolution, and I want to keep it always high. This is an HVA display, not a VA or an IPS. So it has incredibly dark darks with a 1 millisecond response time. I think it's an amazing panel. It's also an adaptive sync monitor, so aside from going up to 240 Hertz on display panel, only 144 on HDMI, it does a great job of keeping the picture looking beautiful. And on top of all that, the colors are amazing on this monitor. Out of all the monitors I have in my house, this has the best color. Now it sports an 82% NTSC, an 80% Adobe RGB, and a 99% sRGB. And this is an HDR 400 panel. For those of you that are a bit sensitive to it, it does have a low blue light mode. And it does have an odd esports backlight that's only red. You would think it would be ARGB, that it blends in with the rest of your system or the ambient color, but it's always red. So I hope you like red. But since it's in the back, you probably won't see it very often. As I mentioned before, it does have 2 HDMI and 2 DP ports as well as audio, but the 2 HDMI, both at 1080p and 1440p, I can only get up to 144 Hertz. That could be my cable, or the monitor only does that on HDMI. On DP though, I can get 240 Hertz and it was beautiful. The gameplay was amazing. The very first game I played like this was Fortnite on this machine with a 4090. I played with ray tracing, with everything. All the colors and everything looked beautiful. That very first game, I got first place. The next game, I got second place. And I'm not the greatest, though I'm not horrible, but I feel like the monitor really did make a huge difference with that 240 Hertz. Now you can also change or add crosshairs to the center of your screen. I'm not so much a fan of that, but the fact that you can do it is kind of cool. It also does picture in picture or picture by picture, so that's going to help you a lot for those of you that need that kind of scenario. It also has low blue light mode for those of you that might be a little sensitive to it, and even if you're not, it might not be a bad idea to enable that anyway. When I showed you the car, I showed you the viewing angles, so that was awesome. You can see it from just about anywhere, and the coloring during that portion of the video was amazing. That is kind of what blew my mind when I started reviewing this monitor. The tremendous difference between this being the Titan Army and this one over here being the Viatech monitor is tremendous. Even though the Viatech is a great monitor, this one kind of does a lot more. The OSD is nice and it has a ton of features. I've gone over a ton of them in this video, but it also has an FPS counter. That way you can see how many frames per second you're getting, and that's kind of cool. The monitor arm I installed supports VESA 75 by 75 or 100 by 100. This monitor is a 75 by 75. It fit perfectly fine. I'm not a fan too much of the way that you have to mount the arm with those long screws, but it worked, and I've been kind of rough with it just to make sure it works for the past 3 days. I've been moving it around a lot and it's done great. That being said, the stand that it comes with, I found to be flimsy and horrible, though you do have that little hole there that you can route your cables through. I think it was unintentional the way they did that, but still kind of cool the fact that they did. Now you can use it in the meantime. It's going to work perfectly fine for you. But if you need a little bit more, you might want to choose an arm. I'll have links down below for both in the description. One thing I hate about monitors is when they come with a glossy finish. It makes it a little bit hard when you have lights behind you or maybe even the sunlight behind you, but this has a matte finish, so incredibly low reflectivity. So I thought that was a great feature that they added on to it. It does also have an 8-bit color depth. It's not a 10-bit, but I still found it to be great. The contrast ratio is 3000 to 1. The pricing on this monitor for a 31.5 inch or 32 inch display I think is awesome. You can check in the description down below for my Amazon affiliate link. And you can also use code TBFY2132 to save an additional 15% off the already low price till the end of this year. So all in all, the Titan Army C32C1S I think is an amazing monitor. Amazing colors, 240 Hertz on DP. I actually prefer DisplayPort over HDMI. The fact that you can install your own monitor arm with the VESA 75x75 and all the features and everything the monitor provides. Downfall for me personally is the stand that it brings. I think it's very cheap and flimsy. Also, the fact that it only supports, that I've seen, HDMI 2.1 at 144 Hertz, which is still high, but still it's not 240. But those are really the only two downfalls I've seen in the monitor. Aside from that, the monitor has been amazing. So let me know what you think about it down below. Iggy with ThisBytesForYou out. See you guys.